How's it going, Drumeo? We are here with Mr. Gene Holgan, and today we are going to be doing a kit rundown for you. So Gene, why don't you tell us a little bit about this fancy drum set you got here?
Well, this fancy drum set fortunately belongs to you, brother. Thank you very much for the loaner for this.
That is true, and you are most welcome.
And this is a beautiful reference kit, Pearl reference, and reference is my kit of choice. And for those of you who are not Pearl or reference players, the reference kit is made up of an amalgam of 3 different woods per shell. And the way they like to do it is they like making the smaller shells a little brighter, so they tack on a layer of birch around the outside, and then there's a couple of plies of maple, and then rosewood on the inside of that. And when you start getting into the larger toms, I can see this one has a maple outside, so it probably doesn't have a lot of birch in it, like maybe 1 round of birch and then a whole bunch of maple and then some rosewood. This one, as I can see, you might not be able to, but this one starts getting a little darker on the inside, and this has a whole lot of rosewood, and that's what they like to bring out the warmth of their larger toms. And the floor here is a whole whack of rosewood. And my dimensions that I prefer these days are, this is a 10, a 12, a 14, and 18. I like to make it really simple in terms of tuning, because a lot of times if you have a 10, a 12, and a 13, a lot of times your sound guy is going to be telling you, hey man, can you tune a little bit of separation between that, rack 2 and 3? And I like making things easy on myself, so I just have that separation already built into the kit that I have. So with a 10, a 12, a 14, and 18, a lot of guys in the studio like using 16s, and I understand that because that gives you a little bit of separation between that floor tom and the kick drum. I like having a big fat thwack to anything that I do with the floor tom, and I'll worry about it sounding too much like a kick drum. I'll take care of that. I'll worry about that. But on your kit here, Ash, we're playing 22-inch kick drums, and I believe these are 22s by 18s.
Correct.
My kick of choice is a 24-inch, a 24 by 16, and I found that if I play a 24 by 18, that does start getting a little just lugubrious feeling, just weighs you down just a little bit. And that's one thing that's really nice about 22s is they're really snappy. Yep. You can play a lot of really hauling stuff easy. I find that for me, the 24-inch kick, it's mostly cosmetic for me, because they just bigger drums. I'm a big dude, so having my toms way up here and then these tiny little 22s, it just looks a little odd to me. So I like hitting you with a big old Mack truck. So that's why I use 24s. Nice. And and when it comes to tuning these, I like the big old deep, kind of deep feel. And I love trying to get like the deep, non-bongy tone out of the 10. When you get a nice big deep 10 tone, you've got a really nice template to start working with. Yeah. So that's it essentially for the shells. Now for the cymbals, I am absolutely a Sabian player, and I'm absolutely a Pearl player as well. That's my kit of choice. I love playing Pearl. I love playing Sabian. And not only are their cymbals amazing, they're great sounding cymbals. I find that with all my companies that I'm endorsed by, I have a fantastic relationship with all of them. And my bro Chris Stanky down in the LA office of Sabian, he takes such good care of me. John Farquharson over at Pearl takes such good care of me. And like for instance, for this little gig here, boy, we had to kind of give him the quick little shout out on, hey man, we need some cymbals. And they're like, we got you covered, no problem, baby. Just show up and your cymbals will be there. Oh, yeah. When it comes to my crashes, I like the AA series, and that's what the AAX series. I like the AA and the AAX. These are AAX-plosions, and these just have a wonderful shimmery tone. They sound like what a cymbal should sound like. Yeah. There's never anything super, like just ganky sounding about any of these. And my preferred setup would be an 18 and another 18 and a 19 here. And the one thing I like to do is, since these are essentially the same cymbals, I like to give them a little listen, and I like playing the higher cymbal here, because this is my main crash, really. So I'd like to get the tone to be a little higher. As you can tell, there's just a little bit of separation, so I always know which cymbal to go to. And that's one thing, like if you're chunking along with a riff and all of a sudden the riff goes a little bit lower, I'll slide over to that to just bring a little more dynamics, a little more life to the song. And when it comes over to my hi-hats over here, I finally found a hi-hat that I love. And of course, it's a Sabian AAX here. It's another accelerator. That's what this one is. Yeah, these are explosions. But I found the 15 that really works for me. I love the 15-inch hi-hat because for me, hi-hat is a mandatory part of being a drummer. And I tell you, there's just so many hi-hat tones that I'm not a big fan of. But for me, for my ear, for my playing, this one finally, it's a big fat sounding 15-inch hi-hat. So if you're getting a little stagnant with your hi-hat tone, I suggest try to move up to a 15. And plus, hell, it's an inch bigger, so it's easier to hit. And so also, when it comes to my rides here, as most of you know, you always see me with these big old Enormo bells here, and these are the Sabian HHX power bells, and these are HH. And these are a little bit smaller than I normally play, and I really enjoy these because they are smaller. And one thing I was mentioning to you, Ash, is that when I'm playing these 21s or 22-inch rides, these days I'm finding that I'm ripping up my hand. I'm banging my hand when I'm moving between the hi-hat and the ride. Yep. I'm knocking my hand on this, and ow, who likes hurting when you play? So I hate that, but I'm really enjoying this smaller version. So. Sabian, I'm going to be calling you up real soon for these. So thank you. And for the past few years, I've been using these amazing chinas, which are the Chad Smith line, the Sabian Holy China. And boy, these things just have such a smack and a whack, and they'll wake up the entire room really fast. I've had so many local sound guys, like the guys that are working the clubs or whatever that we're playing in, working in the venues, and they just... Many times guys come up to me and go, holy moly, who in the world is with that china? I've never heard a china that sounds like that. So there you go there. That's the amazing bit about this china, this beautiful action. So if you get the chance, check out some of these holy chinas. They're incredible. And a newer addition, well, I guess newer for about the past 10 years or so, 8 years or something, I've been using these things that are called Kangs. And I tell you, when I first got my first pair of Kangs, I was like, ooh, I bet they're gonna sound like little chinas. It's gonna be killer. And sure enough, they don't sound like a china, but they have this incredible sound. Like, I'm gonna whack on this really quick, so watch your ears here, everybody, but they just have this really neat little knocking sound that there's not a lot of decay. It's just, it's the sound that it is. So check this out, it sounds really good. Those are just really neat little flavorful sounds, and I admit a lot of times when it comes to using splashes in brutal metal, that doesn't quite do it for me. That just kind of takes me too far out of the aggression that we're trying to get out of metal. Yeah. And this allows you to do splash work and get off the toms and stuff and do tasty stuff up there. And for me, it just doesn't sound silly or bright or shimmery or shiny or anything. It sounds like, so I love that when it comes to using splash work with aggressive metal.
So you might use cymbals like that, like in the middle of a fill or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's just, brings out a little bit of flavor, a little bit of taste. And for me, these things really cut through, and I love that. And that's one thing about these drums is that they really cut. And I have no problem with velocity. So that's one thing I do notice, like, I'll go check out YouTube, like when we're on tour with whatever band I'm with, I will go after a few days of the tour, I'll go to YouTube and I'll start checking out, like, how are we sounding, what's it sound like, hey, let me check out our sound guy, and also I review the material, I check out tempos and things like that, and one thing that I notice is that my drums always cut through. And yay me, I think that's a lot of that, my power, but these drums are just naturally propellant drums. They throw out a whole ton of tone, and coming back to the drums briefly, as a lot of you know, I like using the big old 8x14 brass free floater that Pearl has made. And unfortunately, they don't make those anymore, but Pearl, goddammit, make a Gene Holgan model. So what we have here, I love the brass. I love brass snares. I have a ton of reference snares that come with my reference kits. My reference kit that I'm so proud of at the moment is this same dimensions essentially, but the 24-inch kicks, and it comes in chrome. And ooh, that's really neat. And one thing that I have on my touring kits is I use this thing called the Attack Rack, which it's a brand new company out of Southern California, out of Huntington Beach, California. And I am no rack fan. I've mentioned this before. I'm not a fan of playing racks. I don't even like looking at them. You know, I'm glad your stuff isn't a rack here, Ash, or we'd be throwing it down them stairs.
No.
But the Attack Rack, check it out. You know, wearing the shirt here, Attack Rack USA. Check those guys out because they have a really amazing, incredible rack that not only looks cool, but it is so functional. The thing just sets itself up, and it's really kick-ass piece of machinery this thing is. So if you can see any latest pictures from 2017 of Gene playing live, check out the Attack Rack that's on there. That's one addition that I have.
It's a pretty cool little rack system. You know, I saw you using it last time you came through with Testament, and it's not your traditional normal rack. It kind of sinks in some really interesting ways.
It sure does. Yeah. I mean, it has an amazing look to it. It's kind of an arch over your kick drums, as opposed to the big obvious square rack thing that just gets in the way and just doesn't look too cool to me.
Right.
Now my kit is this just cool looking beast, you know. So I'm really stoked with the Attack Rack. So.
That's great. Hey, before we move on to skins and sticks, you had mentioned you do different pitches for your crashes and stuff like that. Do you do the same thing for your left and right China, and same with your rides as well?
I do. I like everything to work high to low. Okay. So these two, this China will be lower than this China, hopefully. You know, that's what I look for. I always like this one to be higher and lower. Like with the way that I like to tune my kick drums is slightly off tune. I really like the acoustic sound. I'm no fan of the triggers, so I try to get the triggers out of my whole system anymore. If we are traveling with our own monitor guy, that's super easy to just dial in those sweet sounding acoustic kicks, and that's where I like to have the left kick slightly higher. So whichever, you know, we don't necessarily tune the left higher, but we do tune the right lower. So just slightly, and Ash, you did a great job of doing that here. And so that's the way I like to work, since I like the leads to kind of be the high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low. That's the way this all works here. You know, that's gonna be a higher China than that one, higher ride bell than that one. Gotcha. And it just has that high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low.
Gotcha. Hello. Hello. Gotcha, nice. And you play ProMark sticks. Those, to me, look like 2Bs.
They are.
Okay.
And these, you know, these are pretty standard 2Bs. There's nothing, you know, I don't have a, you know, I mean, this has my signature on it, but I never cared to design some signature stick because these just work great. And for me, ProMarks have been, I remember when I first got to Canada back in 1997, there was an after-school show for high school students. And this is something I always knew about ProMark sticks, was in this high school show, it was just like life hacks for teenagers at the time. And they're like, hey, you drummers out there that are out there pricing drumsticks and trying drumsticks. We went to the music store and we bought 10 pairs of different sticks, and they gave them the test run with about 4 or 5 different teenage drummers. And each one of those drummers did not break the ProMarks, and every other stick, and I won't mention the companies, but you know all the stick companies, they were having, you know, breakage issues and this and that and the other, and ProMarks just lasted. And so I was always aware of that. And before I had a stick endorsement, it was like, you got to buy your own stuff. So buy the stuff that lasts. And so that's why I would buy ProMark. And that's one thing I'm very fortunate with all the companies that I do use. I never courted anybody. I did not send out press packages and all that sort of stuff. I tried it at one NAMM, and it didn't work out so well to me. I pretty much got the blow off from everybody because that was like in 1987 or something, and I was a kid, and I had my album, my Darkness Descends album that I put out, and nobody cared about it. And you know, at that time, 87, for you older cats, you know who all the big drummers were in 87, 88, all those, you know, their hair went like that, and they're big million-selling bands, and blah. And so I just, that turned me off so much that I just said, no, I'm not going to court anybody. I'll wait for you to come to me. And sure enough, that is what I did, and that's why I get to play everything that I play. I choose Pearl, I choose Sabian, I choose ProMark, and I choose Evans. Those are the first heads I ever played, because all these companies came to me, and I was, I felt very proud of myself. It's like, God, you just didn't yourself out and make. I'm no cold caller. I cannot make that. Oh, I'm Gene. Can you give me some stuff? I am no good with doing that sort of thing. So I never had to, and it worked out really great. So.
Well, you deserve all that stuff, man. And I wanted to touch lastly on your skins there. So you got Evans skins, like you had mentioned. It looks like you got G2s on the toms.
When it comes to the reference, I prefer the G2s. A lot of times, like when you're in the studio or something, your producer will prefer a thinner ply. The thing about the G2s is they're a 2-ply head, and I suppose for you Remo players or whatever, the G2s would be akin to the Emperor series, and the ambassador for Remos are the G1s of the Evans single ply. And that's one thing that I have found with the reference kit. For me, it really brings out the warmth and everything from the drum if I have a G2 on it. And it was pointed out to me many years ago. I used to be a coated head player because I just liked the resonance of that. And it was pointed out to me by a producer a few years back that, hey man, I'm really getting the better tone from the coated, from the clear heads. And that just gives you a little bit of that top end attack, which is really important in the metal field, I find. When we're playing jazz, it can be nice and warm and lambskin or goat skin heads or whatever. But when it comes to playing metal, you want to just tally your favor in terms of attack and things like that. So the coated didn't work so well for the attack. The clears really do. So I suggest trying some clears, and you'll get a nice little tone out of those.
They sound great. How about the snare head you got there?
This is an Evans ST Dry, and this to me is the flat out best snare head ever made. I am no fan of like those ones with the dots in them and the hidden dot that you can see between the over the head and all that sort of stuff, or anything that just tries to add an added dampening or something. That's not for me. I'll take care of that in tuning. As you notice, there's not even a gel on this because I think between us all, we got a good little snare tone on this thing. And the ST Dry, I don't know what the purpose of these little dots are. I don't know. Hey, hi, Mr. Camera Guy. But it has these tiny little dots in here. And, I like to say that when you're blasting, it gives you a nice little fan sort of thing. But again, I'm kidding.
Some little vent holes there for you.
These little vent holes, I don't know what it is, but they seem to be exclusive to the Evans and the ST Dry. And boy, those little vent holes, those do something. I don't know what, but this just is the most cracky, the best. It's just the nice tone right out of the box. The ST Dry is the way to go for me for a snare.
And last but not least, the bass drum skins.
Bass drum skins, I am not very partial to. I don't ever really know what heads I play. All I know is that the ones that have the little outer foam on them, those don't work for me. So whatever these are, what are these?
Those are EQ3s.
EQ3s, okay, yeah, that sounds real familiar to me. EQ3s, they have a tiny little dampener on the outside, which they're great, but I've always found that, you get a good little pillow in there or something, or whatever it is you use to dampen your kicks. That's the best way to go. And I will mention that attached to these kick drums are some pedals that perhaps nobody's seen me play before, because as many of you might know, I've been a Camco player forever. For me, oh boy, I tell you, just for me anyway, Camcos were the only pedals that worked. Every other drum pedal sucked. Like, it doesn't matter what it was, they all sucked. The Camcos for me were just perfect. As I've said before, they don't do anything for you. They just allow your brain to work down to your feet and do, your feet get to do what your brain's telling it. There's no silly little extra parts or anything like some of these new boutique pedals have. And so for that reason, I was a fan of Camco, and I tell you, these new Pearl Demon Eliminator Redline series, I've said this before, but it took the course of one sound check for my tech, Jeff, threw him up there. He played with him a little bit. It took one sound check to me literally to say, bye, Camco, because these pedals are so awesome. They are so Camco-like, but there's a new spaceship kind of quality to these. You know, there's just, I was never delicate with my Camcos, but since it's not a mass-produced item, I was getting them all off eBay. That, you know, if you're kind of stuck out in the middle of nowhere and all of a sudden you got something that breaks or whatever and you don't have the spare, you know, sometimes Camcos could be a little challenging in that regard. But with these Pearl Demon Eliminator Redlines, these, you don't have to worry about breaking or being gentle. I kick the hell out of these and I love it. These are the new coolest pedal, you know, so it made me leave Camco for you know, I had Camcos for 30-something years, and it was a 5-minute quick little, and it's like, bye, see ya.
That's pretty wild. You were fiercely loyal to that brand of pedals for a long, long time.
Darn too.
And it's saying a lot if you just up and went for these guys. So.
Yeah, man,
Cool.
totally. They come out of the box really good. These are a pedal. You can do a lot of the little tiny little adjustments and stuff like that, but there's nothing that's overbearing about these, you know, the adjusting. It's pretty much I'm an out of the box kind of guy. So
in general, yeah.
Yeah. God, that's fun. Yeah, just let me pull that out of the box, put it right on, and how does it treat me? And these right out of the box, love them.
Awesome, cool. Well, thanks for that kit rundown, man. Everything looks good. It sounds great.
Yeah, man.
I love this. Your setup in general. It's very symmetrical looking, and you got both sides covered. You got the ambidexterity working to your advantage, and I love the ideas you come up with this. Awesome, nice work.
Thank you, Ash.
Hell yeah.
And thanks again for the loaner of the kit. Beautiful.
Yeah. All right, guys, that was the whole rundown of Gene's kit, and we appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you around.